Welcome back to the Common Historian. I'm Jeremy, and tonight I'm joined by two returning favorites, D.A. Wysong and Ronald Murphy Jr., the crypto guru, as we dig into one of Pennsylvania's most sorrowful legends, the Squonk. Welcome back, you two.
Thanks for
Great to
having
be
us,
here.
Jeremy. It's good.
Yeah, DA. Anytime I'm on a program with DA, I'm a happy man.
I feel the same way about you, Ron.
You guys have became one of my supporting cast on my podcast because you guys have been on, like, I think you guys have had the most episodes. So
Wow.
Great.
I thought
Well, I'm here.
we have something in the works. I actually need to get back to him. He had reached out right before the New Orleans trip, and I did not get a chance to get back to him on a date and time, but we have a new something brewing.
I actually was on his show for the first time 2 nights ago for Men in Black.
Oh,
So that was a really interesting show, and I don't think it's talked about enough.
no,
No.
it's really not. I'll have to go back and check that out. I didn't get a chance to watch it yet.
Yeah.
So I guess today we're going to kind of dive into the Squonk, and you both have wrote books about that. Who better to kind of dive in with?
I think the Cryptid Guru should open us up on that one. He is
Oh.
the expert. That's what drew me into the Squonk.
So what drew you into the Squonk, Ron?
I think it's just the familiarity with Pennsylvania because it's so attached to Pennsylvania that you support one of your own. And because it's such a little known cryptid, you kind of want to jump on its bandwagon a little bit and promote it. Because I think as cryptids go, this is it's one that has, I think, the most tells to tell, if that makes any sense. It really what teaches us a lesson, and it acts as a mirror to show us what would reflect back to us if we did get rid of all the things that are mysterious and all those things that need this planet as much as we do. We share this earth with a myriad of miraculous creatures, some known and some unknown. But if we do not take into account the actions that we do, there's not going to be any wilderness left. There's an old Native American proverb that we borrow the world around us from our children, and that is absolutely the case. And I know, looking back at somebody who's 50 years old, looking back on the world that I grew up in, a lot of the places where I played, the farms where I played at, are now replaced by Walmarts, and the places where we used to pick blackberries have now been replaced by tract housing. And it's one of those things where the world around us is shrinking and technology is taking over. And there's something out there, because I was a teacher for a number of years, there's something out there called nature deficit disorder, which is a very real syndrome whenever children nowadays cannot interact with the world around them. And that's a terrible commentary on not only how far we've come, but also how much we've regressed. Because this world around us is where we came from. We are as part of this world as the deer or any of these other creatures that are out there. But we so set ourselves aside from the natural world that everything out there now is something to be feared rather than respected. And I think that what the Squonk does as we get closer to unraveling the mystery of this cryptid is it gives us a sense of reverence for the things out there that are still wild and still undiscovered.
I love that, Ron.
Well,
It's
thank
all
you. Thank you very much.
True. Very true.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. It is sad because as a child brought up in the 1970s with In Search of and all these great shows on Bigfoot and everything, the world around me growing up in Western Pennsylvania was still very wild. So whenever I looked out my window at night and I saw the woods that crept up into my backyard, I thought, there's the possibility that there's something else out there, right? And that's what kept me going as a kid. And now the home that I had in Blairsville, where I grew up, right at the foothills of the Chestnut Ridge, there is no woods to be found anymore. All that stuff is gone. And so whenever we say that the Squonk is one of these cryptids that is constantly weeping, I think he does have something to cry about. and he's crying for us as much as he's crying for himself.
Yeah, I would agree.
He was first written about in the early 1900s by William Cox, and he was a conservationist. He worked up in the big woods around the Great Lakes, and he spent a long time with the lumberjacks. And the lumberjacks are like fishermen. They always come back with a tale to tell. And they were coming back with all kinds of crazy reports of not only dog-headed men, but also one of these creatures that happened to be the squonk. So out of all these creatures that they were describing, like the hide behind and the knot deer and the snallygaster and all these creatures that take up part of this pantheon of big timberwoods mythology, really the only one that kind of sticks with us now is the squonk. We have a little bit of the hodag still remaining with the Hodag Festival up there in Rinderland up in Wisconsin. But the squonk is one of those things that I think has caught on to the imagination more than the hodag. The rock group Genesis has a song out called The Squonk. And so it is now part of our cultural heritage as well. It's just not something like a Bigfoot or something like a Mothman. It now takes place, I guess it is something like a Mothman and a Bigfoot, because now it's permeated our culture to the point that it's not just some sort of obscure little creature. But that all being said, it might not be an obscure little creature, but there's no cryptozoologist out there looking for it either, right? There's nobody taking squonk tracks. There's nobody out there at midnight doing squonk calls or pounding on trees. So even the cryptozoologists really don't believe that this is a flesh and blood animal, but it still retains that resonance with us. And that is, as somebody that studies sociology and psychology, that means a lot to me, why we need this as a part of our culture.
Yeah.
Oh, I definitely think that the squonk is like a forgotten creature from the elemental kingdom, from the way I understand it. And it's almost like the sadness and the message that the squonk is bringing to humanity is basically like on a collective consciousness of the ones that are aware of what Ron's talking about. And it does bring on a collective level, there is a sadness in humanity where we are losing touch with what is around us. And I think the
Mhm.
squonk basically, it's even metaphorically giving us that message and a
I
reminder
agree.
how important that is. Because when
Yeah.
he does weep, he literally becomes part of the earth. He will just melt. His tears just go into waterfalls and become part of the earth, which is really when we get out and hike and ground, we're doing the same thing. Maybe not melting into the earth, but we are being grounded, and we really need that more than ever because of all the
Yeah. I suspect,
technology.
yeah, I think that's a very eloquent way to put it. Once captured, the squonk returns from that place that he came from. He becomes one with the natural world. And I think that's very pertinent when we think about that, because it's showing that he's part of that universal vibration that connects the cosmos together, right? And we have, as humans, also are part of that vibration, but we decided to step out from that vibration and we put walls up, and now we look at the natural world through glass, through artificial lighting.
Yeah.
Whenever we confront the natural world, it becomes almost antagonistic, right? It almost becomes an us versus them. And it was never intended for that to be that way, right? It was always us together until we decided to say that we were better than that. And as DA also so eloquently put it, that the world does need a squonk out there to remind us where we came from. And like I said, it also reminds us where we're going if we don't take care of what we have as resources out there. But yeah, the squonk, I think, is, like DA said, is definitely in the realm of the elemental, that it straddles the line between the physical and the imaginary. But there is enough reality to it. There's enough corporealism to it that we do think that we can reach out and touch it. And when we reach out and touch it, maybe that's like us touching a tree or a stone
Yes.
along the river or anything like that, because it is part of the world out there around us.
And as you're saying all that, I just keep thinking about Bigfoot, which is what I think
Mm.
is also part of the elemental kingdom.
Oh,
And
sure, sure.
of course he blends in with the trees and the druids, and the druid elementals do as well. And just like
Right.
Squonk becomes one with a rock and becomes a waterfall, so would Bigfoot
Mm.
with the trees. That's what the
Right.
elemental kingdom does, is brings that fine line between consciousness and the earth comes together. They're literally guardians of the earth. We've advised some of the elementals, like the Tommy knockers, like they're on the leprechauns, but really we're the ones that are the villains, not the
Mm.
elementals.
You're right. Yeah, that's beautifully stated. Whenever I was at the Forest County Bigfoot Festival, I guess that was 2 weeks ago now, I'm thinking about it. I did bring up that I felt that Bigfoot was part of the world of the Fae. I'm not sure how that was really met by the audience because very few people talk about that. But I think that we need to talk about that more often because we have appropriated Bigfoot to sell our pizzas and to sell our meat sticks and snow shovels and everything. But what we forgot is looking at the Native American reverence for this creature and seeing that it was not just a physical creature, it was spiritual as well, too, just as like the Yeti. And we have decided that we were going to ignore that spiritual part and just hang on to the big feet and the smelly howls and all that other stuff that goes on. But we should never disregard how First Nations saw them because through the eyes in which they saw Bigfoot is the way Bigfoot indeed represented itself and presented itself to these people. And we have ignored that completely. And now we just see a big hairy ape instead of
Right.
seeing something much more, which is a conduit between our world and the other world. In many ways, the Squonk and Bigfoot act almost as the shaman in our culture. We no longer have shaman, but we still have that desire to commune with the other world. And part of that community now is the cryptids that we search for.
I agree. And when in my book, Big Hunting for Big Muddy and the Elementals, I clearly
Mm,
showed that was like the Dryads, that part of the elemental
mm,
kingdom, they're known for knocking on trees. What does Bigfoot do? I think a lot of
right,
these beings are shapeshifters. So for
mm,
whatever reason, maybe when he makes himself bigger to catch our attention. Maybe he just likes to shapeshift around. Who knows? We don't know all of
mm,
why, but I
right.
definitely feel like that they do transport. And I think it's interesting that orbs are associated with the Fae also.
Mm,
And in a
mm,
couple of my books, that's how Bigfoot would transport from one realm to another, was coming in from these different orbs. And then when they kind of land on the ground, they become the Bigfoot. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
it could just all of a sudden blend into the tree, or it could become a boulder. You could be out hiking and see this magnificent boulder, and then the next time you go on the hike, the boulder's not there because it was really Bigfoot. Just
right.
like the Squonk when he's weeping and he's becoming the waterfall. I think that is just so magical in itself, to know that particular species of entities as the elemental kingdom and the Fae have that capability. It's magical. It
Mm.
really is.
It is magical. And that's a key point because we have lost our sense of magic, which is a shame. When we think of children, think of being children, how we used to be amazed at fireflies and chase them in our backyard. And every now and then, whenever I see fireflies in my backyard, I think about whenever I was a kid and running out and stuff like that. But even those very simple things were
Yes.
magical. And then we think about like just recently, just a couple of days ago, we celebrated the summer solstice, right? So
Yes.
everybody waits for summer to happen. And now that magical time of June 21st, midsummer, whenever berries come out to play, now the season is now slowly changing. That wheel in the sky is slowly turning. And now we are starting to lose daylight until the time that it will be dark again, right? So now we're preparing now even though summer just started, the preparation for fall has already begun. And it's that
Oh, I know.
cyclical idea. Yep, it's a cyclical idea of nature. And when we talk about cycles, when we talk about the natural world, Bigfoot and the Squonk are firmly implanted within that idea as well, too. They're part of that cycle of nature and that constant moving forward in that pattern as well, too. But yeah, I think that we really do need to understand that we need to get back to the idea of magic whenever we see miracles out there, because miracles are everywhere. But in order for it to be a miracle, we have to recognize it as such.
I agree. And Ron, wouldn't you say that possibly because one of the other reasons why that the squonk comes to remind us to get back out into nature and to appreciate and become one with the earth? I also believe this with all of my heart, with even with Bigfoot and other factors too, is that whatever we're doing on the surface is affecting not only what's beneath the oceans, but beneath our earth, beneath, I believe there is a hollow earth and there is an entirely different kingdom under there, which is possibly where the squonk might go back and forth to. So whatever we're doing on the surface level is affecting their kingdom or their world as well. And that might be one
Yeah.
reason why he is so sad, because we're being reckless, just
Yep.
straight up right now.
So that reverberation continues. And I'll highlight this for you because the squonk appears, as they say, covered in warts. His flesh is sagging. He is not in a good condition. And he also illustrates what would happen to us if we continue on that path as well, too. If we tear down the ozone layer, our skin would start becoming like that as well, too. So he represents, he's like a warning signal to us. He's a barometer for what we're doing.
I like
If
that.
it's affecting the squonk, if it's affecting the squonk and it's making something that's beautiful into something ugly, then we need to stop what's causing that ugliness. And it's in the story itself. The squonk began as a creature that lived in the desert. And then soon enough, there was no desert left. And then it retreated into the swamps because surely you're not going to kick a creature out of the swamps. But sure enough, they did. They saw the squonk as a monster and they drained the swamps and they covered it up and they built upon it. And then the squonk only had one more place to go, and that was into the virgin lumberlands of northern Pennsylvania. And that is where has his last bit of shelter left, right? And if we would take him out of that habitat, if we would destroy that place in which he lives, then what becomes of him? The same thing that becomes of the squonk is what will become of us as well if we take away all the wild places.
Yeah.
And I love the wild places. It rejuvenates me.
We need the wild places because it reminds us, number one, of where we came from. And it also reminds us how small we are. It's like when we go out and we lay underneath the stars and we see these billions of tiny lights flickering up in the night sky, and we think this is amazing. But what also is amazing is that we are here to witness that, right? We are part of this grand design. And even though we are infinitesimally small in the creative world and our time here is fleeting, we still get to look out at the stars that go back billions of years. And in a way, that makes us eternal as well. And that's the magic that I'm talking about. And that's the magic of the wilderness. And you talked earlier there, DA, about grounding, which is extremely important. And nowadays, people actually sign up and pay money to do things like forest therapy. And where
Or they
we used
get
to
a
just go
grounding mat, put a red light on, and when they could just go outside and get the same benefits straight outside.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Mother's Nature's out there waiting to give you a hug. She doesn't charge anything at all. You can go on out there and give her a hug anytime you want to. But people are paying these other people to take them out into the woods and try to remind them that they belong here. But all you have to do is just wake up, folks, and just say, I do belong here. And so many people out there have become the squonk. They go out there and, oh, it hurts and my legs hurt. want to get a sunburn and is this poison ivy and all this other stuff. So there's so many squonks out there.
I agree. That's really well put. Yes. Very good insight.
Thank you.
Unlike most cryptids, the squonk is pitied instead of feared. How does that kind of set them apart from other cryptids?
Yeah, definitely the squonk does not have fangs or claws or anything like that. So really there's not fear that is presented by encounters with the squonk, but you do have that existential dread that comes about, right? So although it's not a monster in the typical sense, it is a monster because we make it one. We don't understand it. We can't comprehend it. So usually things that we don't understand and don't comprehend and something that doesn't look like us automatically becomes a monster, even though he has an important lesson to teach us. And I think that's why he has been made into this villain in a way. And throughout the mythology of the creature, people have been wanting to track it down and capture it rather than just leaving it alone. And that's really like the goal of everything. It's to capture it. Even though it's doing no harm to anybody, people want to naturally domesticate everything.
Yeah.
So is a bit of a morality tale as well, to leave well enough alone. There has to be that necessary chaos out there in the natural world. And the elementals do represent that. They are the personification of chaos in the natural world. And so too is the squonk. But again, the chaos that he invokes is the chaos perpetrated by people and not by him.
Yeah. Now, DA, with Ron kind of takes that ecological angle for the squonk, do you do the same thing in your books?
Oh, yes, most
Or your book?
definitely. And I think, but the message with the squonk in my particular book was definitely that we need to wake up before it's too late because of the ecological damage that we're doing every day and that we have done with that. And basically, I did tie it together with the hollow earth theory that, like, whatever we're doing on the surface, we're not only affecting what's on the surface, we're affecting what's beneath us and what's above us and what's around us with other world. If we blow ourselves up, it's going to impact every avenue of what I just mentioned, plus beyond. When we shatter, we're in dire circumstances right now, I think. And there's a thing they always say, old farmers always say, there's one thing you can't make, and is that land. So the land that
That's right.
we have to be more be better conservatives with that. And we should be the ones watching over the earth. And instead, it just seems like there's so much greed and that's what fuels looking the other way and destroying everything that we have. Just like the gold mining out west in my Tommyknocker book, we weaponize these gnomes or whatever you want to call them, or trolls, but more gnomes, for being the villains for wanting to steal the gold. But really we were the ones stealing the gold. That's the whole thing about myths and legends. We seem to project our indiscrepancies and our evil doings onto something else, such as the Tommyknocker or the squonk or Bigfoot or whatever. We like to pass the buck.
Yeah, or dogman or anything. Like, we do not want to believe that human beings are capable of such heinous things. So we will take and scapegoat anything that we can so we don't have to take the blame. And then I've said this before.
100%.
Yeah. So what happens at the end of the day is that we are making these creatures, the Tommyknockers and Bigfoot and everything else, into the monsters, into the villains. But when we capture them and we get close enough, we can remove the mask. Invariably, underneath that mask is not a Bigfoot and not a Tommyknocker. It is a human being.
And that's the whole message through the Monster Hunters of America, is that there are monsters out there, but we are the monsters. The monsters that are really frightening are the ones that are like you and me, that are hiding behind that mask that we think is not a monster. It's the scariest monster of all.
Oh, I think we lost Ron.
He will return. I'm sure of it.
He will return.
He shall return.
He shall. Now, while Ron returns, I was wondering what made you put Ron in your story?
Adding another book to the edition, and so I was working on, I believe, the Tommyknockers at the time, and I said, "Sure, let me see if I can get my illustrator to draw this up." And he did. And so he said, "I would love to be a character in your book and meet the monster hunters of America and be a central key." So actually, because of Ron, and it was really cool because the way I write, my process is just, it fascinates me. But I was like, make having his mother make lasagna, and then I found out she was great at making lasagna. I didn't know that, but I put it in the book. So really, in my book, Ron comes and saves the day, and there's
Right.
some mysteries going on in Chestnut Ridge, and I actually positioned it right in his house out there, how I imagined his house. And we figured out some things and tied in the ley lines, which I'm really fascinated with. Even with the hollow earth theory, with the ley lines being a map that leads us to certain things and portals and stargates and things like that. So that's why I wrote the Squonk, to add Ron as the character to meet the monster hunters firsthand, which I loved.
That's great.
Yeah, I agree. It was an honor to be part of it because DA had asked me to write a foreword to one of her books. And I was so engaged by her books, enchanted by them, that it was an honor to do it. And then this is great. And then to become an actual character in the books I admire so much, it was truly a dream come true. But the good thing about DA, her books, her writing, is that like any good author, it's going to be entertaining, but you're also going to learn something from it as well too. So you're going to be a passive learner, right? You're going to learn something whether you want to or not. And that's important. That's important from a scientific perspective. It's also important from even the paranormal, the cryptozoological perspective.
I appreciate that, Ron. Thank you. That's a really wonderful compliment coming from you. And I actually just had several different people say that the one thing is that they like about my books is that it puts that curiosity and that sense of wonder and exploration into our youth, whether they are children that have a really high reading aptitude, or teenagers, or young adults, or even older adults, that they want, it pushes them to want to get out and explore and to learn
Right.
about the world around us, because these beings really are out there, and we need to start reconnecting with that instead of always being in the house. You know what I mean? Or
Right.
just
Amen.
watching it from afar, and have that sense of exploration and wonder back into our soul, just to get out.
1,000,000,000%.
Now, Ron, going back to your book a little bit. Your book is described as a part field guide, part cautionary tale. Who's the audience you're writing for in that?
You know what? That's a good question because an author, whenever they sit down to write, they're supposed to know who their audience was for. I wanted to write it to anybody that was curious about myths and legends, but also who were fundamentally concerned about the world around them as well, too. But writing about the Squonk actually got me into the academic world that I didn't think that I was going to be able to get in. Indiana University of Pennsylvania invited me to actually come on up and do a talk on the Squonk. And it was fantastic to go into a university auditorium and have it nearly full with people that want to hear about the Squonk was amazing. So what happens is even people that are in college still have this curiosity, right? They know that there's something out there and they want to get to what's going on because it's not explained in books, right? You can't find it in books. So I decided to write a book that was as close to a textbook as possible without being too pedantic and allow whoever wants, whether you're a scholar or a skeptic, a believer or a non-believer, they would get something out of this. Because at the end of the day, I'm not asking you to believe in the Squonk. What I'm going to tell you, though, is a story about Western Pennsylvania, the way it used to be, that this was a land of wolves and mountain lions and bison and elk. And then at one time we deforested almost the whole entire area. Had maybe only 200 deer left in the state, and people had to take a concerted effort to come together to reestablish the wilderness once again. Now everything is thriving, but how tenuous it is, how quickly all that can change. So that's what I was going to be getting out there. It was like a cautionary tale wrapped up in the form of a squonk, because I'll let the squonk tell his tale. And then afterwards, I think you'll probably be shedding tears right along with him.
I like that, Duran. That's really good.
Yeah. Now, when I was researching a little bit, I saw, is it JP Wetling supposedly had bagged a squonk near Mont Alto. They ended up
That's right.
in tears.
That's right.
Is there any other encounters or people that have tried to capture it that you've heard?
No. So
Either of you?
that encounter was emblematic of the squonk. That's the story that Genesis borrowed as their foundation for their song Squonk. It was about that gentleman that you talked about went out there, grabbed a squonk, and it was tears by the end of the journey. But yeah, that is one of those things where that is kind of like the end all and be all of squonk encounters, right? Although whenever I was teaching the class on the squonk, there was a person in the classroom who they were from Appalachia, and they claimed that their grandmother knew that there was a squonk living somewhere on the ridge above their house, and they actually heard it making sound. So, as fantastical as that sounds, there are still individuals out there that believe that the squonk is a flesh and blood animal, and possibly it is. I'm not here to tell you it's not, but I think it's a chimera of so many different things. It could be a flesh and blood animal, but it also represents so many other things as well that it's hard to look past those other kind of symbols that it has. The kind of it's become archetypical in a way to the point that we overlook that it might be a flesh and blood animal.
Yeah. Now, I know you mentioned the Genesis song. I think that came out in 1976, but I think Steely Dan also referenced it in 1974.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, their album Pretzel Logic. So yeah, so they actually also knew of the tale as well.
Now, why do you think that the squonk kind of broke out in mainstream culture more than some of those other Appalachia cryptids? Either one of you can answer.
What do you think, EA? Why do you think that we even talk about the squonk?
For me, it's because Ron wrote a book.
Oh.
Ron captured my attention with that. And I think the message was just so monumental and so important today with the ecological effects that we are dealing with right now. And I also think that we that are the humans that are paying attention to that message are connecting that connectiveness with the squonk. We have a compassion and an empathy for that chimera, like he said, or the fae or an elemental or whatever he is, the being. We have that connection, that human connection with him, because it does make some of us really sad to see what's happening to the earth.
That's right. Yeah, I like that. I like that very much, because in order for us to all be together as a human race, as with other living beings, it's this idea of being at ease with everything, right? As being part of that harmony. And then when we step out of that ease, then that brings about disease, right? That's where disease comes from, because we have tried to alter that universal rhythm which connects us all. And once that's altered, that's whenever the problems start. And this is a Buddhist tenet as well, too, and you can even put this over to the idea of string theory as well in quantum physics. But if you could imagine the universe as being this bit puddle, and all of us are carrying around rocks of intention. And if we throw a rock that has negative intention into that universal puddle, it's going to cause waves that spread out further and further. And everything that those waves are going to touch is now going to resonate with negativity. But if we would all take that rock out of our pocket and we toss it into that cosmic pool, and we have intentions of goodness and benign intentions and intentions of healing. Think about what those ripples would do whenever it starts hitting things that we don't even know about, right? And it shows that interconnectivity because all of us, all creation, all the universe is standing around this big puddle, and everybody's throwing rocks into that puddle, and there's waves going everywhere. But if we would all throw a rock in there that we wish only goodness, then the only thing that we'd be meeting each other would be with goodness, and how that vibration or how that harmony would change everything.
We are so much alike, Ron, more than you even
Mm.
know, because that's
Mhm.
exactly, although you actually explained it much more eloquently than I have, but that's how I raised my children.
Mm.
You can either take what you have and you can put it in the negative side, or you can put it in the positive side of the collective consciousness. And so I
Mm.
think that when we have all these atrocities to the negative aspects, that lays in us, it
Oh,
lays dormant. And the same thing goes for when we do positive.
mm.
Even though maybe it didn't happen to my neighbor, but because you chose to do something positive, and Ron and Jeremy and myself and 1,000 others, that will affect our neighbors
That
on
it does.
a
It does. That's right.
subconscious level. And that is the same way that I see the Squonk, is that he is that divide, and the reason why he's weeping is there's so much of the negative that's over.
Mm.
How we need, yeah, we need to do more
Yeah.
positive, be the change we want to see. That's it.
Amen. Amen. That's right. And how about we talk about this as well too? Not only does it affect us subconsciously, but it also affects us subatomically as well too, right? There is this idea, like I'm a religious person, I'm a spiritual person. I believe that prayer does work, but how does prayer work? We are sending out intentions out there hoping that our hopes is somehow able to change the world around us and make it better, right? That's what we're attempting to do. And we have to understand that even though we are praying to God or whatever the spiritual beliefs are, we are still a part of that spiritual communion, right? It's up to us to have those intentions out there in order to help those around us. And what the squonk represents is what happens when we choose not to help or when we choose not to participate. Then that is what happens. Somebody becomes something that was once created beautifully, now becomes something that's ugly and something that hides away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it only comes out at night. And that's what happens. That's what happens. The squonk would be a beautiful creature if we would only see it as a beautiful creature, right? The reason why it's ugly is because we as humanity have chosen to view it as ugly because we, in a way, have made it that way. But I don't think there's anything out there that's ugly. And I think that when we start looking at it through different eyes, that we see that everything is created as miraculous, magical wonders. And at that point, then everything is wonderfully made.
I find it so fascinating, me being a water sign, and I know you're a water sign too,
That's right.
is that when he gets so overwhelmed, the Squonk, he becomes one with the element of water, which can be
Mhm.
so purifying, or it
Mhm.
can be so damaging. It can be so
Uh-huh.
powerful either way.
Yes.
Emotions. And I think that we need to keep that in mind and go with the flow, just like he does when he's this right here with the cover. He doesn't look like he's that great. He looks a little hideous, but he is getting where he's got that waterfall. He's melting into that rock like that. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I think that I know for myself, when I get out in nature, and if I'm really feeling overwhelmed, I will cry in nature. It's like
Mhm.
crying in the shower, and then you release it, and then everything's better.
Yeah. And I'm glad you see that's the other thing too. And we could talk about all that kind of stuff for hours and hours as well. But I know that I've been to a symphony before, and I've been moved to tears by the sounds of the bows against the strings. You're overcome by this
Ocean.
yeah, all that other kind of stuff. That's right. And I think whenever you're out in nature like even with a sunset, I've seen sunsets that have brought tears to your eyes because it's something like, I cannot believe that I'm here for a very limited amount of time and I get to see something like this. I get to witness this.
know, right?
It's almost like a gift, right? That somewhere, something out there knew that I needed this in my life. And I was able to see this masterpiece being painted right in front of me. And I was there to witness it. And I think once we start looking at things that way, with that sense of reverence, that all this stuff out here is not going to be here forever, but gosh darn it, I'm going to, in my time here, try to make it that it's going to be here for as long as it can. Because I would want my kids to see that sunset and their kids. I would like even people that I don't know to be able to witness that kind of stuff. And then when we think about it from the grand scheme of things, looking back, you know, how much of this world we're destroying already to the point that people might not have these opportunities anymore or for not much longer.
And
We
that
got
is
a lot
part of the
into this,
human
so guys.
experience to witness beauty in the world.
So
It's like
that's from, yep, that's an extremely philosophical thing that you said there. And I think that that's something that we should talk about for a few minutes as well, too. So they say, if the tree falls in the woods and there's nobody here, does it make a sound? But that's the other flip side of this as well, too. Is the rose, is the ocean, is sunsets, are they beautiful because we perceive them as beautiful, or are they beautiful in and of themselves? Now, if they are beautiful in and of themselves, then that takes humanity completely out of the equation because we don't have to be here to witness it. It's going to be beautiful on its own, and we do not have to judge it accordingly. And I think that's what the squawk is as well, too. We see it as ugly because that's the way we're projecting ourselves onto that.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly,
So,
100%.
yep.
And
Uh,
I think to take it its next step further is that we see the ugliness on what we are doing and projecting it onto that particular.
Amen. 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 Yep. Amen. Yeah, I think that we could probably start our own cult now.
Does Squonk.
That's right.
Now,
Yeah,
there's Squonkapalooza in Johnstown. Is that a
that's
sign
right.
the creature has been embraced or commercialized? Is that a good or bad thing?
Oh, you know what? The people that put this on have embraced this little guy to a point that they have no way commercialized him at all. This is a get together of people who are free spirits, people dressed like fairies, people just walking around and juggling and listening to lectures and getting hot dogs out of food trucks. It's just where people can come together and celebrate for the sake of celebration, right? And the Squawk needs this. He's been around for too long that he does not have his own little celebration. And this is the 4th year, and I am honored to be a part of that
That's
every single
awesome.
year. And
Great.
it's one of my favorite conferences. It's the first Saturday in August, and I urge anybody that can be there to be there. Everything is free unless you want to purchase something, but you can go see people talk. Hey, Stan Gordon will be there talking this year as well, too. And Eric Oldman will be there as well. So it's just a great time for like-minded people to get together and talk about something as obscure as the Squonk. And there's a lot of Squonks walking
Yes.
around as well, too. So, yeah.
And that puts all these little pebbles into the good
It
collective
does.
consciousness when you have
It
those
does.
like-minded people and you're
It
bringing
does.
that good cheer with that. It makes the world
Oh,
better.
without a doubt. And it's odd that you said that because very few conferences do I go to. Squonk is definitely one of them. The other one is the GobbleCon Festival in Kentucky.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
catch up with you on that one.
Good, good. Yeah. But those are the places where people feel that we're not only either drawn to each other, but we all are interconnected with each other. And trust me, if you get a chance to go to the Squonkapalooza, you will not regret it. And the same way with the Hopkinsville Goblins, you will not regret it there. There's just such a cool vibe going on that we sit there and we're all in our own little element and everybody's together. And it's just all rainbows and sunshine.
I love it.
Mm.
Now, DA, it's not completely Squonk related, but your Monster Hunters series kind of blends fiction with the real locations and real lore. How careful do you have to be not to put words in the legend's mouth?
Because I chose to write fiction because I can do that. And I do that. I just came across a quote that I did with one of my first interviews on X, Twitter. And it was that when I was writing the first book, Rise of the Cryptids, it just popped up today in one of my memories, and I put it in my story, is that one of the reasons that I was inspired to write the Monster Hunter of America, the Monster Hunters of America, was to make people question the true historical timeline that we've been force fed, because most of it's all bullshit and a lot of it's all lies anyway. So, what it would be the difference if I decided to change something and put something in somebody's mouth and somebody else did it in history books? What's the difference? And what I'm saying is more closer to the truth than what we've been fed for years and years.
Very true.
So that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
And she does a great time, or she does such a great job spitting this lore as well too. It needs to be a series. So first time I read her books, I was thinking, why doesn't somebody like Netflix catch on to it or make a cartoon out of it or whatever? Because it really is so engaging like that. And I compared it to, it's like Supernatural, the TV show, meets Stranger Things, meets Scooby-Doo. And who does not want to be a part of that world?
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, because that's actually my vision. And actually, this month, I just released the Hunting for Tulpas last month at the end of the month, the 1st of June. It's at the end of May. And so I've been doing some marketing and catching my breath, and already started on my collection of short stories, Anthology of Madness, which I'm actually writing a little bit of horror for the first time. And what I'm going to do in July is I'm going to convert the first 2 books of Monster Hunters over to script form, and I'm going to start pitching. So thank you
nice.
for that. And what's really cool is that my Monster Hunter series is now available on audiobooks. So it's a war or whatever. So I decided to take and transform over to audiobooks, that's just the next best thing. It's like now I can really imagine them becoming a TV series. That's my next goal. I appreciate that,
Absolutely.
Ron, that vote of confidence.
Oh no,
'Cause
and
I
that's
can
the little
really see
pebble.
it. I can literally see it on TV.
I can
I
so,
can see it
and
coming
that's
to
the
pass.
one little, that's the pebble I'm throwing into that cosmic pool right now.
I appreciate you guys.
Yes, I think it'd be great. A great series. I'd watch it.
I would too. I'd watch it. I think I've watched, you mentioned Supernatural. I actually just posted that in one of my stories. I learned a lot from the Winchester boys about monsters. I think me and my kids and my grandkids too, we have watched that. I have personally I'll fall asleep to Supernatural. If I
I'm
can't
thinking
find
about
anything,
rewatching
you
it.
go, you're scrolling and you've been scrolling for 30 minutes. Like, I'm just going to go watch Supernatural. I think I've watched the entire 16-year season probably 20 times
Wow.
over. It's like my ultimate favorite. I love the Winchesters.
No,
Good
I
for
do
you.
too.
Good for you.
I'm thinking about rewatching it. I told my wife that. I said, after we get done our current series we're watching, we should just rewatch Supernatural. I said, I think that I enjoyed it the first time I watched it, but I think now that I've been kind of diving into the cryptids and the hauntings and all of this, I think I would enjoy it even more.
I think so
Absolutely.
too. They got my vote.
So I just have a couple more questions for you guys because we are coming upon the top of the hour. For anyone in Pennsylvania or planning a visit, where would you send them to connect with Squonk Country?
Oh, the Chestnut Ridge. Absolutely. One of the
Ron's
places
backyard.
that's my backyard. And actually, so my web address is www.ron-cryptoguru.com. And then there's a link to my email there as well, too. If you want to send me a letter, send me a message and let me know whenever you're going to be in town, I could probably even arrange to take people to some of these sites.
Oh,
Awesome.
that would be
I
excellent.
want to go Bigfoot hunting with Ron is what I want to do.
Hey, there's an open invitation.
Hey, you know what? I'm getting ready to go on an expedition with Jody Cook and the North American Dogman Project down at Land Between the Lakes, probably at the end of July, early part of August, and I'm super excited about that.
I
Oh,
would
that
be
sounds
just,
fun.
you know what? Yeah, Jeremy, that's going to be a show. You'll have to have her on for that because I want to hear the results.
Well,
Yeah.
me and Jody are actually going to be on Bigfoot Michigan Rob in August, so maybe I can set something up too and get Joe.
Right.
Jody's a great guy. He lives right
He
across
is.
the
He's big
river.
then. Yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah, that would be really great.
He has actually encountered Dogman twice, I believe, at the national. I believe it was once in LBL, and the first time was, I think, Daniel Boone. He told me to stay out
Oh,
of the
yeah.
Daniel Boone National Forest. That there's a reason why the
Wow.
Cherokee never inhabited that area. They
Mhm.
they barely hunted in that area.
Wow. Now, what's next for both of you? Anything coming up, conferences, upcoming books? If you guys want to take turns and just plug everything.
For me, I am working on my first collection of short stories, horror, Anthology of Madness, which will be coming out in September. And then I'm working on my very first paranormal romance, Darkness Brewing, which is going to be coming out in December. And then I have several projects lined up for that as well after that. I think I'm going to go down and see the Goblins with Ron. And is that coming up in September?
That's in August.
August. Okay.
Mm.
I've never been to any festivals. I've never been to any conferences. So if I do go, it'll be like a first for me. It'll be like I'm a newbie. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to get as many podcasts as I can in because it's been so hard to do when I'm writing all the time. So I feel like it's a thing. And then I'm gonna be, of course, pitching my Monster Hunters to different streaming channels after I get them first two books turned over into a screenplay. So I got a lot of work ahead of me.
That's exciting. Very exciting. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have any upcoming books probably for the rest of this year. I'll have one out in 2027, but nothing for 2026. But I will be at Twin Lakes Art Festival on July 4th in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. Then after that, on the 11th, I will be at the Paris Storm Chasers event outside of Greensburg, Pennsylvania. And then a week after that, I'll be at the Kecksburg Festival for the Kecksburg UFO in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. And then I will be at Squonkapalooza. And then I go to Canada and I'm going to be speaking up in Quebec. And then I'm going to be speaking at GobleCon. And then there's a couple more events after that, but I forget.
I've had to actually start writing stuff down, which I
Yeah.
usually don't do, but it feels like it's escalating, doesn't it?
It
I
does.
have to see where you are in Quebec because Quebec's only, for me, it's just about 3 miles from my house.
Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah.
Are you that close?
Yeah.
You'll have to go have coffee or something, Ron.
Yeah, I'll have
You
to.
will have to. You will have to.
I thank you guys. It's always a pleasure having you guys on. You guys are so knowledgeable on so many different things, and hopefully we can do this again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of these days we're gonna have to just get together and talk about hauntings and ghosts and all the
Yeah,
things that go
absolutely.
bump in the night because I'm really down for that.
Yeah, just let me know.
Paranormal experiences. Although I've never been on a paranormal investigation, it's always just gravitated towards me wherever I've lived in several haunted houses.
I thank you guys for coming on. I will put all of your links for your books and all of that in the description below. And
Can you throw my YouTube channel in there too? Because I'm trying
yeah,
to
I can do that.
I'm trying to work on that a little bit.
And for anyone out there that enjoyed tonight's episode, if you haven't done so already, share it with your friends, subscribe, and just remember that history never truly dies, that it just comes back to haunt us sometimes. Have a great night.
Peace
Thanks.
out.